So hey you guys, welcome back. So today we are in Melbourne, Florida, Zone 10A, and we are going to tour a front yard garden that we just finished last week. It is absolutely stunning. It is a clean line, tropical landscape design. Kevin contacted us because he had it originally landscaped a few months ago, and I know you guys are wondering if he had it landscaped a few months ago, what are you doing here? Well, let me tell you. So, it was everything that he'd asked for. He'd asked for specific plants and some trees, and unfortunately, it just when he was done, he was not happy with it. And so I thought that I would come in and completely redesign it. But once I got to looking at the plants and the trees, he really did have a good choice of material. I mean, he's spot on with a lot of the material that he chose for the particular space. Did we add several things to the plant grouping? Absolutely. But I would say there's a good 50% of plant material that we kept and reincorporated back into the landscaping. So today's video is going to be about proper placement for plants and trees, because it's funny how you can take, and I'll get Bryce to slide in a before picture, but how you can take a grouping of plants, put all the same plant material in, and mesh it all up, and it just didn't work. It was like one was growing taller than the other, the levels were off, and it just didn't take hold, which is absolutely a common mistake. And Kevin wasn't quite sure why he didn't like it. And then once we talked about it and walked through it, I realized, gosh, these plants are not a bad quality. They're, it's a good choice for the location versus sun and shade and whatnot. So it wasn't bad for those reasons. They just didn't pair well together. So we pulled everything out, of course, amended the soil because it needed it, and then replaced them back into a grouping that worked cohesively together. So today's video is going to be about what plants and trees work in the right spot. What's a good companion plant grouping that works together that's not going to cause you tons and tons and tons of maintenance for a space, because the way it's layered in is the way it's going to grow and be easily maintained in those ways. So I hope this video is going to be for those of you guys who are getting ready to plant your front yard garden or backyard garden, and you're trying to decide, gosh, is this going to work together? Am I buying this one time and one time only, or am I going to be replacing it because it outgrew a space too much? So so grab your pen, your paper, and I hope that some of these layers really appeal to you guys and they work for your space. So join me and we'll kind of walk and talk plants and trees. So why don't we divide this up so it's nice and clear? Why don't we divide it up into sections, Bryce? So we're going to focus in on this back section right behind me, this little area to the right of the driveway. This will be section 1. And then we'll hit right by the front door, which I love, and that'll be section 2. And then left of the driveway, section 3, and so on. Right behind you there, Bryce, will be section 4. And so we'll tackle it nice and easy. So if you guys have any comments or questions regarding any of these sections, if you wouldn't mind just sticking the section in the comment, that would be so helpful, because then I kind of have a better framework or better understanding of what your question is and relative to the space. So let's start over here. So this is one of the trees I was talking about. So Kevin had these royal palms installed a few months ago, and they did a little bit of a struggle, but we did pop them in with some really heavy fertilizer and really kind of got them back healthy and going again. So I think that they're really going to do super well. They just went through a little bit of shock from the original landscape. So we kept those obviously in place. We did incorporate a double foxtail palm because, oh my gosh, that front window, that front entrance is just so stunning. And I'm going to stand underneath of this guy. When I tagged him, I was like, I'm in love. I just think this tree is so fantastic. And anytime you have a flat spot that has some columns on either side, having something like that's very symmetrical with such impact, I think it does a nice job of really of really outlining that area. Now, we had some problems with pipes and whatnot, so placement was a little bit difficult with this guy, but overall, I think he's in a very happy place, and I think it's turned out really well. Now, I'm going to come right over to the edge, and I'll list what was here originally in the landscape, just so you guys have a good visual of what was reused. Now, this Ligustrum tree was originally planted in the front area, the front island area by the front door. And I thought, gosh, we needed a little bit of weight on this back side. And I think it's going to do a fantastic job of being a maybe about 8 foot tall by 6 foot wide kind of oval shaped ball back here. I think it's really going to do a nice job of anchoring this corner. So it's just going to be a very, very controlled type of end planting. And then we chose to add his foxtail ferns. And again, yes, these are original to the plantings or to the landscape. And we just put them back in here, and you kind of see how I have them in a nice curve. They're really going to soften just the base of this. I didn't want anything heavy on this driveway, and I think his foxtail ferns do a fantastic job of doing that. Now, I did bring in the boulder. I brought in the Blew My Minds, and I brought in the Mammy Crotons. Now, I know if you guys are familiar with my projects, I love Mammy Crotons. I love what they do. I love their petite style. And, you know, I think that they fit so many different spaces because they can handle full sun, and they stay a nice overall small size. So these guys can be kept 2 or 3 foot. And there's not many plants that you can do that with. You know, if I decided to take those copperleafs and put them here, then they're going to completely cover this cool specimen of a Eugenia that's here. They're going to kind of come into this range, and you're going to be like, what's behind there, you know? It's even though they can start just the same size, the Mammy Crotons will remain that size, and they'll be so easy to keep this height right here. You can literally just draw with these guys, and they'll stay where you put them. Will they triple in width? Yes, my goal is to let these connect and become a swath of this kind of coloration, and they do a great job of that. So you have almost a bright impact. So think of it like a highlighter line. I want a highlighter line of lime green with the foxtail ferns, a little highlighter line of the Blew My Minds, a little yellow, red, and orange highlighter line with the Mammy Crotons. Now, these are all 3 different heights. These are 3 foot, those are 2 foot, this is 1 foot. So you can see when they grow in, these heights are never going to compete with one another. And that's what was going on with the original landscape. You know, big things were in front of little things and so on. So right now, this is a tiering effect where it's all going to really, really work cohesively together. So it goes into this 3 foot height, down back into the 2 foot height. When big things are in front of small things, it's kind of like I mentioned here. If we took something like those copper leaves or like those Songs of India that are behind me and put them in this swath, yes, could we put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Could we put 5 of those in this bed and let them connect? They would absolutely connect, but then they would be the same height as me, and you can see what gets hidden. And you wouldn't do that if you were organizing a kitchen, right? You wouldn't put the fridge in front of the microwave thinking you can get to the microwave when you wanted to, obviously. But with landscaping, it's hard to tell because when you're looking at plants and they're very, very new, you don't know what's the fridge and what's the microwave. So you're trying to figure out, is this going to outgrow this space? So this is always going to be a microwave. It's always going to be small. This is always going to be a fridge. You want to make sure that these 2 things layer properly. And that's kind of the goal behind my overall landscape, is really understanding how plants and trees are going to grow long term. Obviously, you want to make sure sun plants are in the sun, shade plants are in the shade, but you want to make sure that layering happens. Plus, right by a driveway, you guys want to make sure, and I learned this the hard way, so I'm just sharing my I guess you call it my expertise, but also my failures and successes with you guys, because I have put things near the driveway that have literally fried. I mean, this is like being on a driveway. You want to make sure whatever you place there, those things can handle that bounce back heat from the pavers. Because when that heat comes down, it's like back in the 90s when you used to put that, I don't know, what was that, like tin foil in front of you so it bounces back and you get that crazy sun. Totally the same thing. These things get burnt just like you would get burnt in the 90s, or I got burnt in the 90s. So this is something that heats up super, super, super heavy. So you want to put things that are so drought tolerant and tough. Blew My Minds can handle that kind of bounce back, that kind of heat. So Blew My Minds, Foxtail Ferns, Golden Dews, Mammy Crotons, those kind of things can handle that kind of heat. You just kind of want to be cautious about what you use near a driveway.
Different ones. It doesn't need to be a Mammy Croton. Are they all different?
Yes. So with a copperleaf, it can be 3 or 4 foot apart. You do not have to let those get super, super close in order for those to connect because they have a long branching system. They're really going to pull out and try to connect to the neighboring plant. Mammy Crotons, because they're small, they're more cylinder-like, they're more rounded, they're not going to reach as fast. So you do need to let these individual plants get taller and wider before they start to connect. So these are planted fairly close together. Those little delicate golden dews are planted fairly close together. Look at these threes. These threes will connect into one plant in no time. End of summer, they'll start to connect. Same with those over on that side. Because when you're looking at it from the road, these three are really nice and pretty and petite and delicate. But when you put and have like this dark, dark contrast, look at all these reds and yellows and deep tones in color. I know the sun's not out today. I hope you guys are getting this on camera, but it's a dark, dark color. Even the dark green with the blues on the Blue My Mind's dark tones. Then you hit a bright spot with these gold mounds. If these three are connected, that's just a pop, an impact of that brightness. And then it goes to the false agave, which is a structure in the garden, next to a brightness again, and then off to deep coloring. And you kind of see that's our theme here. We have a lot of the light coloring in one location, goes to dark coloring, goes to light coloring, goes to light coloring, and again a dark coloring. So that way you have, I always tend to do the centerpieces of a garden, a dark or a light color, whatever the focal point needs to be for that particular spot. This happens to be, this whole center in front of this window is bright and light in color. And then the two sides, dark, really dark and deep true colors. And it's kind of like holding your hand up. You see that all the time on the jewelry shows on YouTube. I know I watch those. I'm such a nut. I love jewelry. But they're always putting their hand in front of so that way you have a backdrop. And that's the whole idea with plants and trees. You want that backdrop behind the plant and tree because that's what makes whatever's in front of it be the showcase. So I've got one area that I make the showcase, and I make the sides the dark tones, and that's what shows off the showcase. I hope that makes sense. So so it's a rinse and repeat with the rest of this. We have the same Mammy Crotons to the left. It goes to these cool Eugenia Topiaries. I mean, these guys, their structure in the garden is just stunning. At night, they're just beautifully lit up. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous ending point to the garden. Now, I'd like to say that I was responsible for bringing these in, but no, this is Kevin. This is all Kevin. He brought these in with the original landscaper when they did the landscaping a few months ago. The only difference is he had them in different places. So that one there was off to a different side. I think it was off to where I have the ligustrum planted. But I really wanted it to flank a feature tree because I think it called for that. So I chose them to flank this centerpiece tree on the open areas of the wall. You guys have to tell me if you like that. I personally like the way that turned out. So we finished it off here with some foxtail ferns and some mango crotons. Big fan of this banana leaf. I just think it is a cool dark and light contrasting croton. It really, really works well. Look at this top. This top is absolutely stunning. I mean, the color it just draws your eye. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful plant. The only negative to mango crotons, which is with a lot of bigger crotons, is the bottom 1.5 to 2 foot becomes woody. So just like you guys know, if you follow me, I tend to put a skirt around any woody plant. So just like this is starting to become woody here, this foxtail fern and the grouping around it is going to grow in and become a 2 foot grouping, a solid grouping around that mango croton. Just imagine putting a skirt on, you're kind of just covering something up, from the base. So these are going to create a nice 2 foot solid skirt to cover up any of the woodiness or any of the unpleasantness of the croton. And then you get the beauty of the croton without, the black eye of the woody trunks. And then, but it needed some kind of craziness here because look at these guys. I mean, they're crazy in their own right. They're interesting. They're very, very clean line. And I think you guys know by now, I can't handle too much clean line. So because we had this very controlled fashion, the golden dews are controlled, everything in this bed has a lot of controlled features with the roundedness of the ligustrum and the eugenias and the golden dews. I needed more funk It needed more of a mixed texture to make that interesting. So these mango crotons do that. I love their wildly, they're crazy, they're kind of, I love this long leaf. And so having this bed end with a little bit of craziness right next to something super, super pared back, super polished, I think they're going to make great roommates. I always do. I love that contrast together. So it's about making it interesting. It's about picking a paired grouping of plants together where they're going to work. They're not going to outperform each other, but they're going to complement each other. It's the hardest part about designs. It's finding what's going to work in a placement. Sun, shade, heat, location, soil types. Those come into play, obviously. But then when you get into the aesthetics, it's about what's going to pair well together. Yes, if I'm going to put crotons next to something that's that absolutely loves water, I might have a little bit of trouble with that. So I need to make sure that I have kind of that prepared. So you see, I put the agave right next to the golden dews, which can handle lack of water. The Blew My Minds that can handle lack of water. The crotons that can handle lack of water. The Eugenia, you get the picture, right? So the whole goal is this whole pairing, this whole family works very, very well together, size-wise, water-wise, soil-wise, and that's kind of why I try to tell you guys that when I'm doing the tours, because I know you probably just want to hear about the landscape tours and the plants and the trees, but I think that if you have the knowledge of what works together, then you have a successful landscape. This is not a huge bed. There's a lot of material, a lot of impact. If you just did one of these beds in your own yard and you decide to pull this pairing together, you'd have success with it because they're all friends. They all get along. There's no drama. There's no drama here, right? No drama. So that's just the way it works. And so I hope that comes across. So we're going to go into section 2. And section 2 is a nice, simple, nice, clean line, and Kevin and his family are very much that way. They really wanted a clean, very open front entrance, and so we took out pretty much we took out everything that was there, and then backfilled it in with some good soil and brought in these 2 really cool King Alexanders. Now, they are going to be stunning now, but when they're fully matured, they are going to be a beautiful 27, 28, 30-foot focal point. They'll be right above the gutter line and just exactly the staple that this kind of size of a front entrance has. To me, it depicts how these columns work. So I kind of wanted something on each side of these columns that were going to give them that same bit of grandness. And I didn't want a big royal palm or a foxtail palm. I wanted something a little bit more slender and upright canopy. And these guys are totally going to do the trick, especially when they're just a tad bit bigger. So I think they're gonna grow in nicely. Now, I know you guys have seen when we use stone as kind of like a border. When we're real close to a driveway and there happens to be a slope that comes off of the house, and then the water runs just the way it's supposed to into the driveway and into the front roadway, I worry about the constant maintenance of mulch falling into the driveway. So I tend to really outline an area with stone. So first I start with this aluminum alloy edging or Buda edging, depending on what the client's looking for. This one we use the aluminum alloy edging, and I'll be sure to put a link in the description. And then I chose a nice, it's just a river rock. It's called a tan peach river rock. And then I used a base of commercial weed barrier underneath so that river rock never dips. So it's just a very clean, graded area with river stone, weed matting, and an edge of this. And then I just kind of find the line that I want to follow. So I let the columns be the line, curve this in, outline this. So that way when those heavy rainstorms happen, which happen off of this roof line like crazy, I wanted them to kind of have a stopping point, and then this stone to kind of really help keep everything into place. And so that was the goal here. It was just to make it look a bit polished, a bit like the rest of the landscaping. This is definitely not a walkable rock. I get this question all the time. Would you use this for fire pits and whatnot? Absolutely not. This is a rock that moves and molds, and you can kind of see it. This is perfect for this environment. It's great for a landscape bed, but not so much a walking rock. The rest of this is to the back. We've got the Petra Crotons. They're going to do a nice job of being a nice 4-foot backdrop. Again, nothing too thick, nothing too crazy for this space. Just a pop of color along that very, very light coloring of the house. So I think they're going to do a great job of kind of giving you that. And then it's going to tear right down to these golden dews. So these golden dews. So this collection right here, we brought in the collection of the Cordyline was the original planting. It was over on the side, and we just grouped them together. And all of these Ilex Schillings were what was here in the original landscape. We just repurposed them into new places. And then it was kind of, again, another rhythm of the same type of planting on the left side of the entranceway. We have a nice swath of the stone. We reused his Eugenia, we reused his Ilex Schillings, and we've got them on both sides. We used the same Petra Crotons, the Golden Dews, and of course the King Alexander as the centerpiece. So this bed is a little bit different from what you can see its ending point. So they originally had a blueberry tree that we got to work with. I think this is a fantastic spot for it, right in front of this window, and a nice little ending point to the front entrance. And then I don't think we saw it over there, Bryce, but we ended up doing a copperleaf, a red copperleaf like you see here, backdrop on that edge. So we replicated that on this end as well. So this backdrop is a Rojo Red Copperleaf, and then again, a reusal of their Ilex and their Eugenia, and their blueberry tree. So I think that they all work really, really well in that particular environment. So now we're going to go over to this bed. Now this bed is completely different. This bed, the only thing that was in it were the two Eugenias. They had some Ilex in there, and of course a lot of these plants were part of the original landscape, but again, restructured. So back in with the mango crotons, which I love. I mean, this is so polished up here. I'm so glad that we brought these in, because if without these just don't do anything for you. So the combination of the two textures, I think, are so fun. I think they work so well together. So these are going to get a nice 4 foot tall as a backdrop. These again down to 2 foot. And then these guys, you can keep whatever size you want. You can keep them the current size that they are now, just nice and rounded. You can let them triple in size, double in size. They're like the perfect plant to keep the way you want it, because it's a trimmable plant that can stay small. So that's why I have a nice grouping of that green right through here. And then I did a break. I love having a centerpiece, and then anytime you have a centerpiece, if you're able to take something like the Foxtail Ferns or Gold Mound or anything that changes the color combination for you, do it, because having these two on either side, what a mix of texture, where you have the vertical like fuzzy leaf of the Foxtail Ferns, you have the vertical of the very silky kind of cool clean lines of the Agave, and then a little bit of color to the front. I just think that that's just a lovely group of color together. So to the back, again, this is all about placement that we were talking about. So these guys, I love, love, love. And I know you guys have seen them, and you're probably like, okay, enough with the Java white copperleafs. I get it, but I can't help it, because they work in so many different ways. So these are the curly Java whites. These leaves get giant, but these plants are the dwarf variety. They're what they call the curly leaves. So you can easily keep them this height and this height only. You can trim and trim and trim to maintain them at a 3 foot or a 4 foot height. I love the idea of them getting into this range. That way from the road, you have this bright, bright color leaf all over this wall. Then it goes right to a douse of green. Then it goes right to this bright variation of orange, yellow, green, reds, and then on either side, and it's just like boom, boom, boom. It just hits you with color. And then the lime green coloring of the Foxtail Ferns. I mean, this bed to me is really going to come alive once those plants and all these plants connect right here. And Bryce had asked a good question about the plant groupings connecting. Now, what's great about these Florida plants is you can keep them individual if you want to trim them about every 60 days. But if you want to kind of have a swath of one type of plant grouping that connects into itself, you can absolutely do that. You can let this grouping of plants of Foxtail Ferns connect where there's no opening at all. And just the only place that you do trim away is between here and here. Keep this plant species separated, and then let this plant species connect to this grouping. Then now you've got a swath of this coloration, and it looks like one plant. And if you do that from the road, you'll get more of a dense impact. You'll get more of that bright contrasting color, and it's just, I don't know, it's just so stunning. So it's all about preference. If you like them individual, awesome. If you like them individual as a species, to me it makes a big impact like that, because it's a little bit softer, a little bit more natural. So, and then we again finished it off with their own Ilex Schillings. The things that we brought in were these beautiful foxtail palms, a triple in the middle and 2 singles on the end. This triple Christmas palm on the corner as a great backdrop from the road. There's a gap here that needed to be filled, but I couldn't bring this foxtail in any closer, so I chose a Christmas palm on that corner because it's going to fit that space really, really well, even when it's fully matured. So, and then of course, as a backdrop and from the road, you can really see those mango crotons. And in this area, I think that, that pretty much just finishes off section 3. It's just a nice bed, and it's really, really going to grow in well together. These other 2 royal palms were brought in from the previous landscaper, and I think they're bouncing back, doing pretty well. Royal palms have a habit of doing just that. They take a little bit of time to get established, but once they do, they're pretty substantial trees. So this front bed, because we had quite a bit going on along the front landscaping, this front did not need much. So what we did was we brought in these 2 royal palms, and we just carved out 2 individual beds in this loop that's here, and then filled them up with some of the same colorations that we use throughout the rest of the garden. The reds, the yellows, and of course the blue my minds. And I think that combo together, it almost just feels very estate-like where we have them. So every bed has a repetition of that same kind of color pattern. But not just that, it's also about the layer. So the blue my minds obviously going to stay in that small height. The Java whites are going to stay smaller than the red copperleaves, and then the red copperleaves will become the wall around the royal palm. So I think that kind of finishes us up, Bryce. I think that kind of shows just the overall placement and plan. And like I mentioned, you guys, there's a lot of lovely material here that was brought in from the homeowner. He knew exactly what he was doing and exactly what he wanted the space to look like. And sometimes it's just the final execution of figuring out what plant goes in the right place that really kind of seals the deal. And so when we met, he was like, I want to try to save some things if we can, because he spent, good money on them. And so I'm so glad that we were able to save so much, because he was right. He picked good material. He picked nice things. Again, they just needed to be moved around and adjusted, and now they're going to thrive, and they're really going to layer into what he originally wanted. And he's thrilled. Kevin's thrilled, and he's fantastic, so wonderful to work with. So I want to thank Kevin and his family for letting us, obviously entrusting me to create and recreate a landscape that he had just had done. I mean, I know that takes, a lot of want and need to make your space beautiful in order to hire 2 companies to do a project. And I'm so pleased to say that he is thrilled with the outcome. His mom is thrilled with the outcome. Everyone has been so very complimentary, and he is just so fantastic to work with. Kevin is also a dentist in our very own area here in Melbourne, Florida. He has a practice here in Melbourne, and it's called Creating Beautiful Smiles. If you guys happen to be in the area and you're looking for a good dentist, check Kevin out, because gosh, he's a doll. He's just so wonderful to work with, and such a pleasure to be around. So, but overall, I think that kind of finishes us up for our front yard tour here. I hope that gave you guys plenty of information on placement. Let me know if that's kind of the instructional things that you might want to know about, just kind of some of my mistakes and some of the things that I've done in the past and some of my successes, because that's kind of what I'm hoping to get across in these videos, as sharing some of that knowledge with you, because if there's a mistake, I've made it in landscaping after all of these years doing it. So yeah, pick my brain. If there's something you're dealing with, then let me know, and I'm happy to answer whatever comments that I can. So if this is your jam, you're looking to re-landscape your home, or you're struggling with Florida plants and trees, then hit that subscribe button, because that's what I do. I talk about plants and trees, talk about the combinations of what work, what don't work, and there's a lot of that, and and just overall what I love to do in Florida gardens. So we also have a landscape design and installation company. So if you are in our area, we service from Jupiter, Florida, all the way up north to where we are now, Melbourne, Vero, Satellite Beach area. So be happy to meet with you, look at your space, see what we can create. We are a landscape design and installation team in one. So we work with our full-time installation team in-house, and we kind of just come in and recreate the space for you, all the digging included. So give us a call and we'd be happy to meet with you. And you guys, I'll see you in the very next video. Thank you so much. Take care.